Welcome to the first ever episode of Money, the podcast that talks all about the thing that everybody has their mind on, but nobody wants to talk about because it's so scary. And I just wanted to give you first of all, a bit of an introduction. I'm Walt Thiessen. I'm here with my co-host Jody Lynn Craven. Jody Lynn is a money coach. She's also a financial broker and advisor and so forth. Has a lot of experience with the money side of things. But Jody Lynn and I are also we have been co-hosts on a program called LOA Today that I've been doing for the last 14 years. She's been doing it for about 5 years with me. And a funny thing happens when you do a lot of podcasts, especially when you have a co-host. You end up having conversations afterward. We call them after shows, after show conversations. And for some reason, Jody Lynn, our conversations so often, not all the time, but so often went into topics related to money. And
100%.
somehow, right?
Yes.
And somehow we never really noticed the pattern. You would think
No.
we would have noticed it, but it took a long time. And then a few weeks ago, I said, well, why don't we start a new podcast about money? And you just jumped at it. And I said, okay, this is good. And in fact, when we were talking just now before we got going, you were mentioning to me something I've seen as well. A lot of people are really, really concerned about money because things are changing so rapidly and they don't know how to keep up with the changes. You've seen that a lot.
Yes. And I think what you just said about how people are afraid to talk about it, I think that's one of the barriers or the roadblocks to seeing the changes, to, understanding how the system works. I think the system was created to be confusing.
Mm,
And a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, it's so confusing. I don't understand all of it. And
right.
we preemptively beat ourselves up because we think we should understand all of the things.
Yeah.
And in my career over the last 16 years as a broker, I have found that it's much simpler than people think, the basics at least. And it's also more complex when you start looking at the system as a whole, which you don't necessarily need to do to get a good grip around money and what it does, how it works, that kind of stuff.
And yet
But we
that
need
is
to talk about
ultimately
it.
that's ultimately where a lot of the conversation does go. You're right.
Yeah.
And in fact, a comment that I made, I met a new friend today through a Zoom conversation. Her name is Tanya. We were having a conversation pretty much along these lines. And one of the things that came up was how the monetary system we currently work with, it's often called a fiat monetary system or a central bank system, Fed system, whatever you want to call it, is a very cleverly put together system. And
Hmm.
it's deceptive in the sense that a magician, a stage magician, is deceptive. You know, he can do his sleight of hand, and you can't see how he did it, but you can see the rabbit come out of the hat.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
central banking and the Fed are very much like that. It's done right in front of you, but you can't really see it unless you know what's happening, unless you know what the trick is.
And a lot of our language has been distorted so that to really understand it, you have to understand the language
Mm.
first. And we have our own beliefs and values and perceptions around what these words mean. Like for an example, debt.
You did. Oh yeah.
Some people are like debt is good, debt is bad. Well, every dollar is debt. It's
That takes a while to get used to that one. But the first time I was
yes,
exposed to that one, I know you did too, right? The first time you're
yeah.
exposed to that, you're saying, "What? What are we talking about?"
100%. And I mean, like understanding that would be the bigger conversation of money, I would say. I
Yeah.
was a financial advisor for 10 years before I really started to understand that bigger economic, like macro, micro, expression of money.
And for anyone who might be a little bit afraid about the fact that we're saying this, don't worry. This is not going to be episode number two. This will be episode number 202. You're going to go through a lot
Exactly.
more before we even get close to that,
100%. And
right?
this isn't going to be boring.
No.
I found that when I work with clients on the financial side of things, if it's you can't relate to the material and if you can't make it understandable, people just check out and they're gone. So that's a part of our conversation too, is explaining things in a way that people understand.
Now, one thing that is going to be really cool about what we're doing here is not only are we going to talk about money in a way that anyone with a third grade education can understand. But we're also going to invite listeners to send their questions in. And it could be personal finance issues. It could be stuff that you're trying to understand about the economy. You're trying to figure out where things are going. It could be almost anything related to money. And we're making it really simple for you. We have a website set up, moneypodcast.net. And literally, it has one thing on it. It has only one thing. And that one thing is a way for you to send your question in. So just go to moneypodcast.net if you want to ask us a question, and you'll get on the podcast. Certainly in the first few episodes, as time goes on, as more and more people do it, then we'll have to be selective about it. But if you're one of the first ones, you're going to get your question answered pretty darn quickly. So take advantage of that. Um, and
Absolutely.
and toward that end, we actually have our first questions. Even though this is our first episode, I have a couple of friends who said, "Oh, wow, I've got questions," and I've received some of those questions. So I want to start with one of them because it ties in directly to something I know you and I believe very strongly about money, and it provides a really good foundation for people who are trying to deal with this stuff for the first time conceptually. So
Yes.
let me read the question to you, and I'm going to let you take the first stab at answering it because, well, first of all, I know this is right in your wheelhouse. And second of all, I know it's one that you really love. So that's why we're starting here. So, anyway, this is my friend Elmer. And Elmer says, okay, seeing money as energy, big concept right there. Seeing money as energy. How do I get it to flow? I have experienced solid evidence in receiving money from focusing on the energy aspect, but how do I keep it consistent? Focusing on the energy of money.
Ooh, okay. Well, there's a couple of things that I want to say preemptively before answering the question. I think the reason why Walt, you and I have these, backroom conversations after the show is because, you studied the monetary system and you even wrote a book about it, which is so cool. And then I've studied the monetary system and I've been in the financial system inside of Canada, and I've studied a lot about the United States for the last 16 years. So we would banter back and forth about that in relation to the law of attraction and everything being energy. So I love this question because
I knew
everything,
you would.
yeah, everything is energy. Everything is energy. And so is money. Money is just simply energy. And where I would break this down for your friend Elmer, um, the couple of things that I would look at if somebody believes that money is energy and they know that it's a flow, but they haven't been able to master the consistent flow of things. First and foremost, you got to check your belief system. What do you believe and what do you perceive is possible? And I find I am also a coach, and I teach abundance consciousness is the philosophy that I teach. It's a channeled system essentially that came through me, and it was all about the energy behind money. So this is perfect. What I found though is that as I was teaching this and as I was learning it myself, as I was downloading these fundamentals, was that my belief systems got in the way. I believed, oh, I gotta work hard. And this is one of the things that I actually talk about in my coaching practice is that what does hard mean to you? Because for me, it wasn't working 12 hours a day or working 7 days a week. Although those things are hard, when I closed my eyes and I really felt into the energy of what I meant with that belief, what I saw was bloody hands. Like where
Wow.
you're gripping like this, for those of you that aren't watching, you're just listening on a podcast, when you grip your hands into a fist and your nails are biting your palms and you draw blood. That is what I associated making money with. It needs to be hard. I need to give it everything. I need to die to get it. And your beliefs, the way that our body, our brain is built, is that you're going to find evidence of that truth. So I would look for, is there a belief system that it has to be hard or that you have to do X to get Y consistently? That's where I would start.
I love that. I think that's great. I want to throw in a few things to kind of add to what you were talking about, because I remember the first time I was presented with the idea that money is energy. And my first reaction was, what? Same
Right?
thing with money is debt. Both of them were just like really foreign as far as I was concerned. But what I started with was a recognition of a few things. First, I think just about everybody has heard the phrase that money is a medium of exchange, meaning that it's used to exchange goods and services.
Hmm.
And I can get that. I think most people can grasp that part. Well, that is energetic. If you're
Hmm.
going to trade something, there is an energy involved. First of all, there's the physical activity, right? You're selling widgets and I'm buying a widget from you. We physically we're either doing it this way or we're doing it digitally, but in some way we are taking action to exchange money for widgets. That is an energetic exchange on a
Yeah.
very basic, foundational, fundamental level.
Hmm.
Now, of course, what you and I are talking about when we talk about an energetic exchange is that taken to a broader perspective, that there's
Hmm.
more than just the immediate energy there, that the energy actually emanates from that, but also emanates from us, that there is
Yes.
that we are all energetic beings. And there's a certain spiritual aspect to this that you and I both subscribe to that not everybody's going to subscribe to.
Yeah.
But let's say if you're a religious person, if you're a Christian or a Muslim, Buddhist, something like that, there are certain beliefs about the energetic aspect of each one of those religious belief systems. That
Hmm.
energy is also playing a role here.
Hmm.
And anyone who has those beliefs knows that energy feels very real to them because of their belief. So
Hmm.
that energy literally plays into, among other things, how they exchange goods and services for money. So
Hmm.
again, that's how the energy piece of it comes into it. When I looked at it that way, that's how I was able to make sense out of the idea that money is energy. I mean, I'm not sure how you did
Absolutely.
it, but
I think that I just realized everything, if you boil everything down, it's all energy. We are energetic beings. Like everything is alive and has consciousness, or that is my belief system, that plants do, and you can talk to them and all of that. So when I thought about it from that perspective of that everything is kind of an illusion, if you will. We're creating the reality around us. Well, of course, we're going to create whatever reality we see in front of us with money. So that's the energy side of things of what are you creating? And it's coming from your thoughts, your beliefs, the emotions. It's not even something that you need to speak out loud or even be conscious of, which is
Mm.
crazy. You could have just came up with the belief that making money is hard or making money consistently is hard.
That was
And
me.
right? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things. We're told a lot of things in our society and our upbringing of like, oh, this is hard. And depending on which generation you were born into, right? Like your generation is going to be different than my generation. Well, because we had different generational parents.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, like my dad's perspective, my dad is 72 years old, and my dad's perspective of money is different than mine. But when he was a kid, he was getting ice blocks out of the river for their refrigerator to keep things cold because there wasn't a refrigerator, there wasn't power, there wasn't a cell phone. Like it was completely different for him in his upbringing than it was for me. So we're gonna have different belief systems, but he's that stuff's going to carry forward. The way that he lives his life is based on his belief systems. The way he sees the world is based on his belief systems. And of course, when we're young in that, 0 to 8, we're so impacted by what other people are perceiving around us, and we hold on to those beliefs.
Whether we want to or not. I mean, you would describe
Right?
how your father would literally get the ice out of the river. My generation, my parents' generation was a little bit older than his. My parents grew up in the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And so they developed all the attitudes and beliefs that came out of the Great Depression, and literally all of the worst of them because both my parents came from really deep levels of poverty.
100%.
I
Yeah.
mean, my father grew up in a family. Now, they didn't think of themselves as poor. I thought that's an important distinction. But the poverty was nevertheless a part of their lives. I mean, my father's family, the local firemen would bring them Sunday dinner every week to help fill in the gap because my grandfather literally couldn't earn enough money to support the family. So the firemen were
Yeah.
helping to fill in the gap. It
Yeah.
was that kind of a society.
Absolutely. And I think that's actually a really beautiful thing, of, the firemen bringing them
Mm,
food. What a beautiful community. And I
yeah.
think it's interesting that you say that because my dad has said something similar to me of we didn't know we were poor because
Mm,
everybody was poor. So
mm,
everybody was in the same boat. But I think energetically, what's happening is that scarcity, not knowing where your next meal is going to come from, what it's going to look like, whether you're going to be warm tonight, whether you're going to freeze, like, all of those things play into this conversation. So,
Hugely, especially that word scarcity. And
mhm.
I'm glad you brought that one up because that's probably one of the biggest bogeymen out there.
Yeah,
And it never
totally.
gets identified as a bogeyman, but it
Mhm.
really is
Mhm.
because people are literally given narratives to scare them about scarcity. And I say it
Absolutely.
that way because it turns out at the end of the day, when you really study this stuff, there is no such thing as scarcity except for what our minds create.
Exactly. Well, the way that I got over that was looking at nature. I mean,
Mm.
when you look at how many blades of grass there are in the day
Yeah.
that you're passing, you're like, oh wow, that's abundant. Like when you
Yeah.
start to really look at like how many leaves are on a tree, wow, it's abundant. Like you look at the birds that, hey, that bird's not worried about rent. Like how is that? I really do believe that our society is out of sync with nature and we need to go back to that. But nature holds a lot of keys to things that we haven't quite got right in our society.
I had an image as you were describing that of a black crow coming over to the nest saying, okay, it's time for the monthly rent. And the woodpecker saying, yeah, good luck catching that one.
Yeah, 100%, right? Like even I had the download a while ago because things change, right? Seasons change. There's these
Mm,
tiny little birds that we have around our home. And they're just teeny tiny. And I live in Canada, the Great White North. And so winter is very harsh here. I live in
mm.
Alberta, and we will see like -30, -40 degrees Celsius, which is, I don't know, in Fahrenheit, very cold, very, very
Actually,
cold.
it turns out 40 Celsius, minus 40 Celsius is also minus 40 Fahrenheit. That's where the two connect.
That's right,
Yeah.
exactly. So really cold. And I was thinking this spring as I saw these, little cute birds emerging, where the heck did they go in the winter? And
Mm,
the download that I had was that nature, as well as us, we are modified to be able to move through the seasons. Like we are engineered for this, is really
mm,
what it was. Those birds, they have engineering within them of, what they do to survive winter. And, looked it up after I had this download because I was like, is this really, my head playing tricks on me, or was this an actual, download from source? And it was true. They like lower their heartbeat and they eat a bunch of fat or whatever. And they basically kind of go into hibernation over the winter and then they come back. And, frogs do the same thing. Like I asked my husband, what happens to the frogs in the wintertime? Like, how do they stay alive? But we have all these frogs now. Like, where the heck do they go? He said, oh, they bury themselves in the mud and then they hibernate essentially like a bear. I'm like, wow. Wow, what beautiful like cosmic engineering. Like, wow. I mean, if a frog is like that, what do we have access to?
yeah. No kidding, because we have certain capabilities that the frog has not developed just yet.
Right?
I mean, let's be honest, we have quite a few.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. I
It's
think
an
about
amazing
all those
thing.
things that nature has definitely changed my perspective on life as well as money.
But the truth is, the reality is that the whole belief in scarcity is a major part of society's narrative, and it affects us in a lot of different ways to the point where today we're going through a lot of changes right now, especially, and it's going to happen. I think we can both agree, like within the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a tremendous amount of change
Yeah.
where money is concerned. One of the big topics that has emerged over the last 20 years is the topic of cryptocurrency. And you and I actually did some shows on LOA Today. We called it the Crypto Skeptic for good reason. And we were open to ideas, but we were pretty skeptical about it. Um, I won't speak for you. I'm going to let you speak for yourself on this, but I'm going to tell you everybody what I have come to conclude on it. My conclusion actually dates back to 2008 when 2009 when the whole thing started with Bitcoin. I was actually aware of it at the time. I was one of the few who knew what was going on.
Oh, wow.
And I literally could have been a billionaire if I wanted to. I mean, I could have bought, well, not bought, I could have literally mined because it was easy to mine at that point. I could have mined, like others have done, hundreds, thousands of coins. I didn't do it. And to this day, in one sense, I kick myself for not having done it.
Of course,
But
hindsight.
of course, but I also know why I didn't do it.
Hmm.
And I didn't do it because I understood it really well. And I knew that the conclusion I was drawing then was pretty much the conclusion that I'm drawing now. And I'm going to tell people about it in a minute. But it was that there were so many flaws to it that I couldn't conscientiously bring myself to take something like that, let it acquire all this apparent dollar value, and then sell it knowing in my heart of hearts that it wasn't worth anything. I couldn't
Mm.
bring myself to do that. Doesn't mean I don't keep kicking myself. I do almost every day, but that piece just weighed on me so much. I just refused to do the mining. I couldn't bring
Wow.
myself to do it.
This says a
And
lot about you as a human being, you know?
yeah, it
Like,
says I'm a real fool, really.
no, no, I think that's wow, that's incredibly beautiful that you know, you could see that there was no value
Mm,
essentially. I mean, there's a dollar figure attached to it, but
mhm.
there was no value for what you were getting. And you know that other people don't know that they don't understand that. And you weren't willing to play a role in it. That's
And
pretty.
today it's a hard conclusion to draw because I believe the current price of Bitcoin is about $62,000 per coin. You know,
Yeah.
how do you say that it has no value? Well, here's how I say it. Name one person that you know who has bought or sold anything using Bitcoin. And I know without even having to think about it, there is nobody listening to this podcast. There is nobody I know. There is nobody I've ever met who knows anyone who has ever transacted anything in Bitcoin, which raises a very important question. If it's not being used as currency, how can it be currency?
That's a really great question. So people are just turning it over. They buy it, they become a millionaire, whatever, and then they sell it to somebody else. And
They're
then
all investors. They're all investors,
interesting.
all of them. And the
Interesting.
acid test, this is the part that really gets my attention. And I knew this was going to be the acid test back in 2009. The acid test is, does anyone use it in the most severe circumstances where you'd have the most motivation to do that? And the most severe circumstances would be somebody who's living in double or triple digit inflation. And the local currency is so worthless and so useless, you have to have something in order to survive by. So you use a Bitcoin or something like that.
Hmm.
And yet, in all of the different countries where Bitcoin was available either legally or illegally, it has never taken hold despite double digit and triple digit inflation.
Hmm.
I
Do you think
mean,
that
that's just
that
amazing.
but do you think that that is because of like the systems, like the banking system specifically, like our governmental system, um, like blocking it, not
Well,
wanting it to be? Yeah.
certainly the governments, particularly in countries where they do have the double or triple digit inflation, they do everything they can to block people from using Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Problem is they can't succeed in doing that continuously. They can't always succeed. That's what
Yeah.
if they could, there would be no such thing as a black market. Black markets are
True.
evidence that they fail.
Yeah.
So, yes, that's part of it, but it's only a piece of it. The bigger piece of it is black markets are usually used by criminals. And Bitcoin is very much associated in most people's minds with criminal activity, with money laundering. I mean, the news reports that people hear are about how Bitcoin got used by some money launderer or some terrorist in Afghanistan or something, and how they used it to finance their evil deeds or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You don't hear great stories about how somebody used Bitcoin to build a community. Have you ever
Mm.
heard a story like that?
No, I haven't.
And for good reason. It's because
Yeah.
those stories don't exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you have that kind of information coming in, people, this is a very important point for people to understand. Money is only money if people think that it's money. It's very
Right.
much dependent upon that psychological point. I mean, cigarettes back in World War II were money.
Yeah.
Today, cigarettes aren't even close to being money. Nobody ever trades cigarettes for anything.
Unless you're in jail. I
Well,
bet
okay,
you there.
I'll give you that one. That's fair. You're right. You're right.
There's a different currency system in jail. I think that's really the hardest thing for people to understand about money is that it is literally a piece of paper, that there
Yes.
is no value except for the government's promise that it is valuable and our belief. And this is really where it hinges, our belief collectively in society that it's worth something. Um, and so it's interesting because when you talk about your journey with Bitcoin and why you didn't invest, when you say it doesn't have any value, I almost think about it. I almost think about the dollar like
Mhm.
that too. I mean, at some point, confidence has to shatter. At
Mhm.
some point, there has to be the bubble that burst. Like no fiat currency in history has ever survived. And I don't know the amount of time. I don't know if it's 100 years or how long the longest fiat currency survived. I don't think it's 100 years though.
No,
I think it's like 50 or 60 or something,
that would
somewhere
be
in
about
there.
the maximum. Yeah.
Yeah, so 50 or 60 years. So we're gonna see the change of the guard, and we have seen the change of the guard. We just probably didn't realize it from the gold standard to the petrodollar,
Yep. Hmm.
right? That and nobody really understands that.
That's right.
um I mean, it just means that gold used to, prop up our money or be behind money as the value behind it, and then it was petrol, and now that's changing too.
Hmm. Yeah. And the best way I always advise people to understand that is you don't have to understand how it actually works. You don't actually have to understand how it is that gold backs dollars or anything like that, or how petroleum backs dollars. The only thing you need to understand is that it's an illusion.
Yes.
It's a magician's trick.
Yeah,
That's
it's like
all
the
you have
Wizard
to
of
know.
Oz.
I mean,
There's
you can be entertained by a magician, right? A
Yeah.
magician can go up on stage and do all this stuff, and it's entertaining.
Hmm.
It can also be manipulative.
Hmm.
It can work either way. Now, the monetary system is manipulative, but it could just as easily be, hey, let's do some fun stuff with money. Oh, isn't that so cool? You can do that.
Could be entertaining.
It could be,
But,
yeah.
but I think our society has put us in the bucket of manipulation.
Yes. And people are becoming aware of that, even if they don't understand it.
Hmm.
I mean, when I wrote my book right after the financial crisis in 2008. I wrote it as a novel because I was trying to write something that would make it easy for people to understand how the whole thing works, because it's a very complex subject.
Yeah, it is.
And I think all of 100 people read my book, so it didn't go very far. But nevertheless, I gave it a try. And one of the big challenges I had at that time was the same challenge that anybody else who's ever tried to do this experienced, which is how do you take something that complex and help people to understand it in a way
Hmm.
that they can just grasp?
Yes.
And all of our efforts, all the there are many people who have tried to do that. All of our efforts failed. People just had trouble grasping how it all worked. But a funny thing has happened since the advent of the internet, particularly, and especially over the last 10 to 15 years. It's not that people are getting it, it's that we have so many people who are connecting in ways they could never connect before that the questions behind it are being raised for the first time. Questions that
Hmm.
nobody was ever willing to talk about. And even
Hmm.
now, I mean, you and I are starting this podcast because we've recognized this is a topic that nobody really wants to talk about, but everybody wants to know about. Well, the fact that they want to know about it is because everybody is now very aware there's something funky going on with the money. Don't necessarily know what it is, but it's a level of awareness that didn't exist before.
100%. Yes. And if you believe in energy, and that we are all connected, when a group of people, even a small group of people, begins to get it and start to ask questions, that ripples out. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. Well, that's what we're seeing is that ripple out. They don't know why, but they feel compelled to ask different kinds of questions today than 10 years ago or even 5 years ago.
And I think that despite the fact people don't understand it, they are aware that stuff is changing now. They
Hmm.
don't necessarily know why or what to do about it. That was something that came out of my conversation with my new friend today. She's really frustrated by how she can't really figure out how to deal with this crazy money scenario that's going on. she can recognize the symptoms because she experiences it. She lives in a part of Washington State. It's a very rural area, and there are a lot of nonprofits that go on there, a lot of community efforts and so forth. But also a lot of people just struggling to make ends meet. A lot of things that are just it's just hard to do things. She was talking about her own experience. She has trouble. She has a small business that she's trying to develop. She has trouble dealing with things like how do I use social media to market my business, and she can't make head or tail out of it. And like I pointed
Mhm.
out to her, there's good reason for that because most of the information she's been given is wrong. I mean, that's
Yeah.
also part of this. It's a wonderful thing we have with this internet, but there's also a lot of disinformation. It works both ways.
Absolutely. And a lot of like sleight of hand. Oh, look
Mm,
over here.
yeah.
Nothing's happening over here. Don't look there.
So
Ah,
of course it's confusing.
of
One of the
course.
things that I told her about something, I want to bring it up here, and you and I have talked about this. I am baffled by something. And it's not hard to be baffled by something where money is concerned. But I'm still baffled by this, not so much because of the money piece, but because I have trouble understanding why no one else has done this yet. Because once I lay it out for you, you're going to see what I mean. It's really an obvious thing, and yet no one's doing it. And I don't get that. But leave that aside for a moment. Let me just lay it out. There are a couple of tools, and I'm going to call them literally tools, in order to demystify them and also to take away the demonization of them. One tool is called capitalism, and the other
Mhm.
tool is called communityism or socialism or nonprofitism. They kind of all fall into the same camp. And depending on your political viewpoint, one is bad or the other is bad. You don't really find anybody who thinks that both are good. You find some that, are willing to accept both of them to one degree or another, but they
Mhm.
just aren't willing. And there's just too much in the way to prevent people from saying, "Oh yeah, we can marry those two together." But the thing that always occurred to me was capitalism, for all the ways that it's used evilly, the basic system of capitalism is very successful.
Mhm.
It works.
Mhm.
Unlike many people, I treat it as a tool, like a hammer. I don't blame the hammer when the hammer gets used to murder somebody.
Mhm.
And people have been murdered and raped and beaten and robbed from using capitalism. That has happened repeatedly. But it's
Mhm.
not capitalism's fault. Capitalism literally is nothing more than investing capital, getting a profit, and then reinvesting your profit. That's capitalism.
Mhm.
That is the total extent of capitalism. So
Mhm.
take away all the stuff that we demonize and just keep that part and say, that actually works. Now, there's something else that works. This is the idea of a nonprofit organization. A nonprofit organization takes resources and feeds them where they're most needed in order to accomplish some sort of a goal that isn't normally being accomplished.
Yeah.
And it does so in a way that actually ties into money that we don't really think about. Money, we talked about earlier, it's a medium of exchange, right? So we assign monetary values to things. And those
Mhm.
monetary values do not always associate well with things we actually value. You ever
Mhm.
notice that?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an amazing thing, right? So there are some things that people do that have tremendous value, but they don't have monetary value.
Mhm.
And that's where the whole idea of a nonprofit comes in to provide those kinds of values without attaching a price tag to it.
Mhm.
But the idea that occurs to me is nonprofit organizations, their biggest weakness is they're constantly fundraising. That you
Yeah.
have to do that. If you're doing a nonprofit, you're constantly raising money so that you can spend it on the thing that you're trying to spend it on.
Mhm.
Capitalism is all about how to increase the amount of money you have for whatever your purpose is.
Yeah.
And this is the part that I have trouble understanding. Why don't people combine those two concepts together? Well, I do know why. It's because we demonize them. That's why we don't. But to my way of thinking, you create an organization that has capital to start with. You don't put all the capital into spending it on to do your nonprofit stuff. You use
Mhm.
capital the way a capitalist does it. You invest it, and then you
Mhm.
take the profits, you reinvest some of that into the capital building process, and some of it you put into the nonprofit organization. And
That's
if you
right.
do it that way, you never have to fundraise again.
Because you have a capital engine
That's right.
funding all of those things. And you know what? I think I could be wrong. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on this. But when you just said that, what I thought of is there are companies doing this,
To some extent, they've tried to, yes.
but not from the same principle or belief system that you are, that I see. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. If you like it, great. If you don't, that's okay too. It's not going to offend me. Um, but I think about the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Okay.
Now, I don't necessarily think that I don't know enough about their company to say they're not doing great things, but I've heard there's not so great things. And in this
I think we've all
context,
heard
yeah, yeah.
that.
Okay. So just leave that on the side for a second. I think these ginormous conglomerates or corporations, they have used kind of that model, but to what is the word that I'm looking for? To evade taxes,
Mhm,
because now they're giving it to a foundation. So it's a tax bait and switch,
mhm,
essentially. And a lot
mhm.
of these foundations, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, don't do a lot of great things like they could. But I think that you're saying, have the capital engine, have that fund the beautiful things from a heart space, from the
Mhm,
right place, not
mhm.
about avoiding taxes, but about simply helping the causes that you're passionate about, whatever that may be.
I would agree with that. I would say there's actually nothing wrong with having the tax avoidance piece. I think that's perfectly fine. I just
Well,
don't
it's
think it's the
written into
main.
the rules. You're
Yeah,
allowed to do it, so why
yeah.
not do it?
But
Yeah.
but I don't think it's the main reason to do it. I think
No.
there's a much better reason to do it.
Yeah.
The way I like to think about it is Bill and Melinda Gates. Bill Gates, of course, is the founder of Microsoft.
Hmm.
He made his billions because of Microsoft. He is
Hmm.
investing a large chunk of those billions into the Bill Gates Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, as a way to deal with like, okay, what am I going to do with all these billions? It's actually a problem that billionaires have. There, believe it or not, there are billionaire conferences where they get together and say, what are we going to do with all this money? They,
Yeah.
they really do have conferences like that, and they really are
Hmm.
bewildered by it. Now,
Hmm.
to the average person, that sounds strange. How could they possibly be bewildered? Bewilderment, that's ridiculous. But they really are bewildered. And
Hmm.
let me explain why I think it happens. We all have different skill sets, right? You are an investing expert.
Yeah.
You also know how to run a business. Those two often go together. They aren't necessarily the same skill set, but they
Yeah.
often go together. Sometimes they don't. But I think it's fair to say that as an investment guidance counselor, if you will, you
Yeah.
have a different skill set from a carpenter
Totally.
and a different skill
100%.
set from a social worker
Yeah.
and from a teacher
Hmm.
and from name your favorite profession.
Football player.
Football player. Yeah. You have a completely different skill set.
Yeah.
Investing is a skill set. Running a
Hmm.
business is a skill set.
Hmm.
Being a teacher is a skill set. And very rarely do they all overlap with each other. Some
Yeah.
will overlap to some degree, but for the most part, they're all pretty different.
Hmm.
So a Bill Gates comes along or his ex-wife Melinda and they create the Bill Gates Foundation. Well, what are they doing? They're doing it within the context of what Bill Gates knows how to do. He knows how to invest and build a business.
Hmm.
So he creates his foundation that way. He really doesn't know how to administer to people who have certain kinds of needs. He doesn't know how to do that. He just
Hmm.
has this money and he does his best. Now, I really do think that he's trying to do that from his heart, but he lacks the skills to do it.
Yeah.
He has never developed those skills.
Hmm.
And he really doesn't want to. He's gotten to a stage of life where he says, okay, I've done my part. That's the way he looks
Yeah.
at it.
Been there, done that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And he has his own causes. That's one of the reasons why he's also vilified. His causes, some people like his causes, other people don't like his causes. That's where the vilification comes from.
Yep.
So there are going to be some people who love what he does, and there are going to be other people who are going to say, that guy's full of crap.
Yep. Yeah.
Again, that's because of a different skill set. It's a different mindset to be a a business entrepreneur and an investor and so forth than it is to be somebody who runs a nonprofit that helps do whatever it is that you can think of that nonprofits like to do. You know, pick your favorite example. It's a
Yep.
different mindset. It's a different skill set. It's a different way of thinking about things.
Yep.
So I agree. He tried, and to a certain degree, he succeeded because he has all this money he can pour into it. But by the same token, I also notice he doesn't actually apply capitalistic principles to his own foundation. He funds it through his outside capitalistic activities, but he doesn't do it within the organization as a way to permanently fund the organization. And he
Mm.
doesn't bring in people who know how to do nonprofity things
Yeah.
to run the thing.
Yeah.
And that's
Absolutely.
why it doesn't totally work.
Hmm.
There's an organization in Spain. I can't remember the name of it. It's like Mondragon or something like that. It's got a weird name like that. It was founded in the 1950s. And it was founded by a priest who approached some engineers and proposed the idea of using capitalistic principles to try to build a nonprofit.
Interesting.
Almost got it right. He's the closest of anyone that I've ever seen, this priest. He didn't quite get it right. He almost did. It actually exists today. It's a very successful company. It's actually a company of companies. It's a company that is owned by the workers. They basically share ownership of it. But the odd part is it's not owned by all the workers. There are
Mm.
two different tiers. There's the workers who own it, and then there's the workers who work for it at peanuts wages. So, in
Mm.
other words, they've taken the basic concept of capitalism, they've taken the worst behaviors used by capitalists in
Yeah.
order to fund it, in order
Hmm.
to build it, and they've created this monstrosity as a result. But you and I, we both know you don't have to invest or run a business in a way that is contrary to basic humanity in order to be successful at it. They just haven't figured that part out yet.
And I think oh, like going back to like mindset, a lot of entrepreneurs are taught this is just how it has to be. This is
Mhm.
how you have to do it.
Right.
Whatever that like whoever you're following, whatever it looks like. And that's the only way that you can do it. And I think that's one thing about money, and abundance, the larger, broader topic is that there isn't just one way to
Mhm.
get it, to receive it, to keep it, and there is no absolute right way. What works for me may not be your jam, and that's okay. That's the beauty of it, is that we get to be creative with what we're creating in life, including money.
I want you to talk more about that word. I love that you brought in the word creativity, because
Creativity.
it's not something we normally associate with the conversations about money. Most of the time, we're
No.
talking about scarcity of money, or what am I going to do to pay the bills, or what are these terrible millionaires doing, or it's never about the creativity part. Let's
No.
talk about the creativity part because that's actually a really important piece.
Well, I think again we get stuck in a box of like this is how you make money. This is what you do with your money to be good, to retire, to whatever it is, the mantra that's inside of your head. But that's one way. There is billions of possibilities. And this is actually something that I touch on in my course too,
Hmm.
is the possibility muscle. And I looping back to our very first question, your friend's question of seeing more flow into his life more consistently. Let's get creative of it. Let's challenge the old, I call it cow path, the old cow path that we're on. Because if you've ever seen cows in a field, it doesn't matter if there's 100 miles of field to the left and field to the right. They all seem to be like tip to tail on the same cow path.
It's astonishing.
Right? And we do this in our own lives. The way that we do one thing is the way that we do everything. And we stop being creative. We stop thinking creatively. We stop thinking in terms of possibility. And it's funny, I'll challenge my students. I want you to write down, you know, 10 ways that money could come into your life. And they're like, oh, okay. So, 5 to 10 is pretty easy. Okay. Try 50. Try 100. And people are stumped.
Yeah.
This is literally a muscle training your brain to see that possibility is everywhere. The possibility for money to flow into your life is everywhere. Like from picking it up off the street to someone randomly deposits, money into your account to I have a great example this week. My car got written off because of hail damage and they're paying me out for my car. Like there is billions of possibilities on how money can come into your life.
Mm.
And we stop being creative because we get stuck on that cow path. I go to work, I get paid. I do this, I get paid. When I was 17 years old, I was racing horses and I wanted to get paid to do it. And nobody told me that I couldn't. Actually, in fact, my parents were like, yes, you can get sponsorships. People will pay you to, go race horses and drink beer every weekend. And I was like, yes, please, amazing. And it's crazy because I had amazing sponsors that paid for me to go down the road and literally race horses and drink beer. And it was awesome. It was, so much fun, especially that age, right? That's all you really care about, having
Yeah,
fun,
right.
drinking beer. That was my two priorities, and then boys, I guess.
Yeah, right.
At that point, but it's so crazy because people get stuck in that limiting belief, and I see it. I saw it then in that world, how there were people that they're like, I can't find a sponsor, and I can't do this because it's too much money, and la 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 la. Like we have all these excuses and reasons on why it can't happen. What if we just put a pin in those things and said, what if? And start
Mm.
challenging ourselves to find the possibilities. The exercise specifically is a possibility chart. Literally, you write down on a blank piece of paper what you want in the middle. Could be a dollar figure, could be an actual item, whatever it is, and then make a spider web. Challenge yourself to find as many ways as possible that could come into your life. And when you get stuck, try and come up with 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 more. This is your brain expanding. This is you getting off the cow path. And when our brain realizes that, oh, this isn't only the one way, it opens up and literally it's like a veil is being lifted and you see more possibilities being presented to you.
I love that. I love that example. I love the exercise that you created for your students. That's a really good one. It
Thank you.
actually reminds me of one. It comes from a teacher we both know, Abraham Hicks.
Hmm.
It's called the wallet game or the checkbook game, depending on how you
Yeah.
want to label it. In the checkbook game, you literally imagine that somebody deposited $1,000 into your checkbook. You actually write onto an old style checkbook register, $1,000 deposit, and then you try to spend it in your mind.
Hmm.
And then you get to double it after you've done that, and then spend that, and double it again and spend that. And people think, oh, well, this is going to be a great game. I can just buy all kinds of stuff. And just like you pointed out, it's amazing what happens when you get up to day six.
Yes,
I mean, it happens really quickly because, then you're buying the house and you're buying the car and you're buying the boat and you're buying the yacht and you're buying, and then you start to run out of ideas. Like, what else can I buy? And the money is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You say, I'm running out of ideas. That's literally what you're
exactly.
talking about.
Absolutely. Yep.
And it's astonishing because it really illustrates, it shows us firsthand. Doing an exercise like that shows us firsthand just how much we've limited our own belief system about how creative we can get.
Absolutely. And the way that our system works, the way that our brain works is it's going to look for what you believe is true. So it's
Right.
it's trying to prove to you, yes, your beliefs are correct. It's looking for that,
Yes.
like that's how it's designed. So why not make it work for you? Okay, I believe money comes to me consistently. Okay. And then you pay attention, watch for the evidence. And most people miss it. Like, oh, I have found this $5 on my desk. Like I literally opened my wallet last week and I was like, oh, I don't have cash. I was at a farmer's market last Wednesday and oh, I don't have cash. I only have this $20. And then I opened up my purse or my wallet and inside the zipper pocket of my wallet, there was $150 in cash. And I was like, ooh, look at that. But
Where'd that come from?
yeah, exactly. Where did that come from? But even the smallest, like a penny, a quarter, a dime, or like whatever it is, a loonie. You can tell I'm Canadian. That's a dollar. A dollar coin is a loonie here in Canada. But people will just disregard it.
Mhm.
And they'll be, oh, well, it wasn't a big significant number. But this is a part of the energy game too, is acknowledging what you're being given and having that appreciation for it. Like, woohoo, I got $1. Woohoo, I got a free Starbucks coffee when I was in the lineup. Woohoo, somebody bought me lunch and while I was in the lineup. Or, I've had some of my students had like literal envelopes full of cash dropped off at their house randomly. They were not
I love
expecting. And so when we train our brain to see it, and I would add for our friend there that asked the question, if you want to see it consistently, start paying attention to what you're getting consistently. Like, oh, I got paid today. That's consistency. Oh, I got this, whatever it is that has a monetary value to it, because it's not just the physical cash portion and it's not just the total amount that you're looking for. Like if you're looking for $3,000 and it came in $500 increments over a week, what does it matter?
it. You're right.
You still got $3,000, right? It doesn't matter. But it's that acknowledgement of it. And then once you're acknowledging it and you're paying attention to it, your brain is like, oh, I see it, and goes looking for it. So that this process becomes easier. And as a result, you consistently receive more money.
Beautifully stated. That's one of the best statements of the law of attraction I've ever heard, particularly where money is concerned,
Thank you.
because it is absolutely the truth. We can have windfalls happen and just dismiss them.
Totally. Yes. Oh, well, I worked on that for a while, and we just disregard all the magic
Yeah.
that comes into our life.
But when we
Stop.
give it the energetic attention, there's the energy again,
Yep.
because that's what it is. When we give it the energetic attention that says, oh, wow, I so appreciate this thing came in that I
Yeah.
didn't expect. That's when, like you said, we start retuning our perception of the world so that we start looking for things we weren't looking for in the past.
Yeah.
And that gets the creative process going.
100%. And I've heard before that our eyes only see a small percentage of what is actually happening in front of us.
Mm.
And I always think of that when I get stuck in my own perception and how things can happen of I can only see a small percentage of the world,
Mm.
which means that there's a lot that's out there, which feels magical to me, feels a part of that creative process. Okay, if I could just lean into that 98% or whatever it is that I can't see, I bet you it's there. Okay, it exists.
I think we have proof of a number of things on this first episode of Money. The first one is something that you and I know from the LOA Today podcast. When we're feeling good, it flies by, and it has flown by. We're at it in an hour. We're past an hour, believe it or not, and that's usually like
Oh,
the limit that we put on. Right. Like if I'd asked you before I told you, how long do you think it would have been? Like, 30 minutes or something?
yeah, yeah. I thought we'd been talking for 25 minutes.
That's the way it usually goes. But we do want to, before we wrap up and prepare you for the next episode, if you have a question about money, we'd love to address it. What we want you to do is go to the website that we've set up, moneypodcast.net, and all you'll see there, you won't see anything else. We won't be trying to sell you anything. You won't have to sign up for anything. There's nothing that you have to try out or anything like that. The only thing you'll see is a form for you to submit your question. That's it. That's the only thing that's there. I mean, so this is like the lowest pressure website you could possibly go to in the world. And in
Yes.
fact, we even give you a choice. You can either make it a video, or if you're kind of shy and you don't want to do a video, you can just type in a question. You can do it either way.
Yeah.
But send your question in. We will use your question on the next podcast, and we'll help you get your mind and your mindset on the path to making the changes in your life that you've been wanting to make all along so that you can get the results you've been wanting all along.
Absolutely. In a fun, exciting way.
This is going to be a fun podcast.
I agree.
This,
It's a
I
fun
mean,
topic.
look at our faces, right? We just did an hour on this. We just spent an hour talking about money of all things. We're grinning ear to ear. I mean, this is going to be good.
Yeah, and this gets to be the experience for everyone else. And I
Mm.
want people to see that and start to feel that for themselves, because money doesn't have to be a drain. Money doesn't have to be frustrating and full of anguish. It can be good and it can be fun, it can be exciting, and it doesn't have to take $1 million in your bank account to feel that way. You can start feeling that way today. And that's what we're going to talk about.
I love it. So thank you very much, Jody Lynn. Look forward to next time. And everyone, we will see you next time on Money.